So when I get up in the morning and I, go into the shower and put on my makeup, everything's fine. Like when the Rachel Ray show came to film me, they wanted me to go in the bathroom and like struggle to put on makeup, and I'm like, I can't do that. That's like not a thing, right? Like I know who I am in the bathroom because it's me. Like there's no one else there.
So on the first day, she explained prosopagnosia to us, and she's so genial and just lovely, and she was like, "You're just gonna put these name tags on," and that's gonna help me understand, remember who you are.
Yeah, even a mild case of prosopagnosia is socially devastating. Even just a mild case, just walking past one person one time and not knowing who they are, it can ruin a friendship, right? Mm-hmm. 1 out of 50 people are affected by this disorder to some degree. That's 2% of the population. I have an extreme case. I'm off the charts. I have no ability to recognize people by face. I'll never know if it was from childhood trauma or if I was born with it. I'll never know.
It's an inability to recognize faces without a loss of vision per se. So someone can still navigate the environment. They can still describe objects to you, like a chair, a desk, but they've lost the ability to recognize the features of a face or discriminate between faces.
I've run into her in the
bathroom the other day, and I was standing next to her for like 5 minutes waiting to go, and I had no idea who it was. She's like,
"Hi Heather, it's Lorraine."
And I'm just like, seriously? Like, are you sure about that, young lady? When people will show me photos that I don't know about, if I can't recognize what I'm wearing, I won't recognize myself. So it's more like I memorize the image. I do have pictures, and I don't recognize the people, but I've memorized the images. So I know that that little girl is my friend Amelia just because I took that picture, I bought her the shirt. We're in New York, and so I know the day, but I don't recognize her face. I just know the context and the story, and I remember it. I've memorized it. And then I know that's me and my stepson. But if it wasn't me in that picture, if we weren't together, I wouldn't recognize us individually. Or if you cut us off and just gave me the faces, I wouldn't know. But I remember the day. It's Thanksgiving 2 years ago. That's Cubby Jones. He's a corgi, and I wrote a book about him, so that's his book next to him. So there's a special processor in your brain that just does human faces. A dog face, you recognize the same way I recognize, and it's the same way you recognize any other object. So if there were 20 dogs lined up, like 20 corgis of that kind, you would not recognize your own dog. You would do it the same way I do it, by like the ear chunk that's missing or the deformity, like the wheelchair or the super tall guy. You would not be using the face. So one of the interviewers from a TV thing said, "So people look like dogs?" No, that's not it at all. It's object recognition. Yeah, it's two totally different things. Yeah. So I recognize dogs the same way you do, but you have a special processor for human faces that does this amazingly magical, super complicated calculation automatically, without your control or knowledge, instantaneously whenever you see a face. And I can't do that. It's not weird that I can't do it, it's weird that you can. In college, I always knew something was wrong. Parties and social things were so challenging for me. But I thought, well, I'm smart, I love books, I just like the library more than people. Maybe that's it. But I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was because I had never heard of face recognition. So on a daily basis, I'm challenged just knowing who I'm supposed to know. And at work, it's really hard because you want to be able to interact with people normally, and I can't. I have to ask for help.
I imagine it's the weird feeling that you get when you're at a party and you know that you should know somebody, that you've met them before, but you can't quite remember their name or something, and you just feel awkward. So she said that she feels awkward, and so she has these ways of dealing with that.
When I was married, my husband was unfailingly kind and helpful. Like when he would see me go up to the wrong man at the grocery store, he would just gently come and get me and steer me back to our cart. He was always so nice because he knew and he understood. So when I land at the airport, it's just like all these men who look the same. But my husband was always on time, so I just walk up to this guy who looks like my husband, and I'm so happy to see him. It's not my husband. This happened over and over and over again. And it's partly funny and partly excruciating. it's hard to know like what's your nature and what did the disorder shape in my personality. I'm never gonna know, but I do think any disability has the opportunity to create more empathy in you just because you see the world differently than if you take everything for granted, right? So yeah, I definitely feel like I'm, in a different room. I always wanted to be a teacher long before I knew about face blindness. I wanted to be a teacher and a writer. So I'm very happy, I'm very lucky that I have this job.
Though she has this condition, she, more than any other professor I've ever had, actually sees you for who you are and where you are at the moment. It's like she sees something else besides the external, and it makes you feel very at ease, like she understands you.
I've always been attracted to people who are different. So in high school, my best friend was the guy in the wheelchair, because there was only one kid in the wheelchair in my school, so I always knew who he was. And the guy who was freakishly tall, like almost 7 feet. And so he was kind of like ostracized because he was so different. So I liked him because I could always know who he was. So I love that about my disorder. It's enabled me to connect to people who other people, especially in high school, where it's the big popularity thing, like all the pretty people and the rich people are like the highest. I was attracted to the people on the edges, and I love that about the disorder. So that's one light at the end of the tunnel for me. There was a support group online, and I was complaining a lot online about how hard it was to get people to understand the condition. And in a very gentle way, one day she wrote me and she said, "Heather, it took you 36 years to figure it out. Why don't you give people like at least 5 chances to try to begin to understand it?" And that was so humbling for me. Like, I learned so much. It's hard to explain it. It's hard to get your mind around it. And if you don't know how perception works, that it's a memory issue, quite different from a vision issue, like if you don't have sort of those basic things in place just in terms of how the brain works, it's just, you're never really gonna understand it. I say it's like this, like if you have a stone on your desk, like I so wish I had one right now for demonstration purposes, but if you have a stone on your desk, like it's your little pet rock, you call it Joey, like you always know that that's Joey because it's on your desk. So I go by context. If my boss is in his office, looking kind of like an English professor, with the elbow patches and just like professory, I just go with it. For a face blind person, if he's out like at Starbucks and I just walk in randomly, I will never know that that's my department chair, even though I saw him 30 minutes earlier. So the metaphor I use is like, take that stone you know really well in context and throw it out on a beach covered with stones. That's me at a party looking for my best friend. Like, good on the desk, can't do it out of context. So that metaphor seems to help people understand it a little bit.